Why, hi there. I'm Ron. He is
Dave. I am Dave.
You're Dave. And it's time once again for the Digital Dice Podcast, a very special century edition of the show. We've turned 100 episodes.
Episode 100 recording today here in August of 2021.
What an accomplishment that is. And we have a huge surprise for you today. But first, before we reveal that, why don't you tell us how to get a hold of us?
All right, ways to get a hold of us. digitaltodice.com is our website where we park all the shows over on Spreaker. 978-751-DICE. 978-751-3423 is the Dice line. Email is digitaltodice@yahoo.com. And over on Facebook, facebook.com/groups/digitaltodice.
And so on our 100th episode of the show, we have a guest that happens once in a century. It's the guru of action PC sports, the chief, Dave Koch.
And that's coming up next. Joining us on the Dice line for the 100th episode of the Digital to Dice podcast, a very special guest. If you played any of the action PC sports games, and you might be aware of Dave Koch. Welcome to the show.
Good afternoon, guys. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being on.
Congratulations on number 100.
Thank you so much.
Century of shows.
Yes, it is. 2 years and 100 shows. We finally made it. But thank you for coming on to the show here.
You're very welcome.
Now, before we get on to the meat and potatoes of the show and the questions here, we do ask all of our guests one question. And that question is, if you could go back in time and attend any sporting event at all, which event would that be?
You know, I actually discussed this during the winter with my brother that's closest in age to me. He's 15 months younger. So we've spent, until we got married, we spent our whole life sharing a room and going to sporting events, and we still do. And, you know, we're not old enough to have remembered like the Ice Bowl or the 57 Braves World Series, but one event that popped into my head, and you can see it on YouTube now, so that takes some of the fun away, but it's 1971-72 NBA season when the Lakers had won 33 straight. And there weren't that many nationally televised games then, and there were not very many games on the Bucks television network, maybe 10 a year, but CBS had their game of the week on a Sunday afternoon, I think. And it was Bucks-Lakers, and the Bucks beat them to end that 33-game streak. And I remember, you know, as a 9-year-old being excited for the game. And just think of the names that are in that game. I mean, it's Chamberlain, it's West, it's Goodrich, it's Alcindor, it's Dandridge, it's Robertson. It's just on and on. And the Milwaukee Arena at the time seated something like 10 or 11,000 people. So I just, you know, as a 9-year-old, I just couldn't imagine having been there. And now looking back, of course, all those great names, that would have been a blast to be at. The other ones are, sure, I'd like to have been at when they won the championship in 71, or when the, you know, Packers won a big game. But Bucks Lakers, when everybody on the court is somebody you knew and somebody famous and somebody legendary.
I think that's our first basketball one, Ron, isn't it?
And it is. My mom actually talks about that game. She was pregnant for me, and watched a lot of basketball and talked about that winning streak.
Okay.
But yeah, so.
Well, and the Bucks had won 20 straight the year before, so that was the year they went 66 and 16, and actually had a good chance to win 70, but kind of rested guys that last week. But yeah, we were big Buck fans then. Still are. It's been a good year for Wisconsin sports.
Been a great year for the Bucks.
Well, in Wisconsin sports, the Brewers have something like a 7.5 game lead right now, and Packers almost made it to the Super Bowl, like they do almost every year. It could happen again, almost.
At least it's not like the Rams back in the LA days when Christmas would always be disappointing. Oh, you got home field? Oh, isn't that too bad?
Yeah.
I always liked the Brewers. I like that logo. Like you're wearing that logo on your shirt there today. The little hand with the ball in it. I always liked that logo, and I never realized that there was an M and a B in that logo. It's one of the hidden things in logos that you see these videos once in a while. There's some hidden things in logos you never saw. I never thought of the M and the B. I just thought it was a glove and a ball, but I always thought that was a nice basic baseball logo. I really did.
Pretty clever. Yeah.
I did. Is Bob Uecker still doing the play-by-play out there?
Bob Uecker is still doing the play-by-play. He doesn't do most of the road games, and he's lost a little on his fastball, but he's still very, very interesting to listen to. very entertaining. I don't know how old he is, maybe 85 right now, but yeah.
He's in his 80s, yeah.
He's the sound of summer in Wisconsin. You know, like in the early 70s when you listen to the Brewers, that was mostly your option. There might have been 20 games on TV, but that's the sound of summer in Wisconsin is Bob Uecker.
That's fantastic. So let's turn our attention to gaming now. What were some of the first games that you played, growing up? What were some of the games that you played?
The first one I remember is not necessarily, it's a dice game, but it's not a player strategy game like we're all into right now. One year for Christmas, I got a little, must have been about a 7x7 inch game. It was a plastic diamond with a bullpen cover that you could keep. You kept the game dice and player pegs in it. There may be half a dozen dice, and you could roll them to get your result. And I remember playing games with that when I was probably 7 or 8 years old. And I look on eBay every couple of years to see if I can find it, and I can't. I'm afraid that when I do find it, it's going to be $5,000 or like one of those you see in the Hall of Fame that's probably worth $1 million right now. But then the first strategy ones I remember, you guys remember Monday Night Football?
I think so, yeah.
It was on a big game board, but it had a light underneath. One side, you'd flip a lever to call the offense, one to call the defense. That would give you the results. And the results were always the same. There was nothing random. If you picked blitz and I picked screen, you knew what the result was every single time. So, and another one I remember then was Talking Football. How about that one?
I had ABC Monday Night Football with the records. Is that what you're talking about?
No, this was like an actual stadium, probably 18 by 20 with fake bleachers, but it had a light underneath a cardboard base, and you had the offense on one side and the defense on another side, and you would each flip a lever for your play call. Screen on one side, blitz on the other, and then the little tiny light would pop up and say the results. So there wasn't anything random to it. If I called screen and you called blitz, you knew exactly what the result was every time. But still, there was strategy because there were lots of different plays and play cards.
The record one, I think, was a year later or so. That one came out later, but yeah, you're right. They did have one that was a record.
Yeah, it was like a little box, and you took the record, and the defense like spun the record and picked if they wanted to go.
That was Talking Football.
Yeah, the Talking Football. Yeah,
and it was Talking Football.
And I thought, was it Bob Costas? Was the
Dick Enberg?
Dick Enberg was the.
Yeah, it wouldn't have been Costas. It would. Yeah, and that was another one of those where you pick an offensive play card or play disc. The defense couldn't see which one you had, and they would shift around and hit blitz or prevent or whatever.
Yeah.
And I remember some of those. I remember the play-by-play because you didn't have that many options.
Yeah.
You still played it because that's what you had for strategy games. But I remember screen pass, if he called blitz, it's 25 yards. And it was something like, it's like blitz is coming, screen over the middle, 25 yards, screen to the fullback, 25 yards, something like that.
I just remember
every time. So you only had to listen to the first note.
Yeah.
That result in one note, and that's what it was.
He gains 5. He gains 9. Knocked out of bounds.
Well, I also remember that if you had a fumble, you had to pop in the disc for the fumble result. And one of the 6 results was fumbled high in the air. And it took forever for the ball to come down. So it doesn't happen very often in real football. But
yeah.
I think I'll put it in the game next year, though.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
There's somebody on YouTube, I think it's actually Higher Ground Gaming, that uses that board, okay, with the scoreboard and the little pegs for the time and the whole bit, and he uses that to play some of the games online with. He doesn't use the records, but he uses that setup. So when he plays his game, it's like because it had the first down markers and everything. It was brilliantly done. It really was.
Yeah. When I saved a lot of that, I didn't save those. That would have been probably before I really cared a lot. That would have been in the era when I was writing to companies like Appa and Stratomatic for the brochures and, waiting till I could afford the $15 or $20 or whatever to buy them. But I saved, back in the 70s, I bought anything that was in Street and Smith's. I would buy it just to see what it looked like. And so I still have lots of old board games where, yeah, it's fun to look at the old fields and how they were laid out and the materials they used and stuff like that. And I've got an electric football that I never used. It's from the 1940s, but it does work. It does work. I plugged it in and it does work. So
it's okay. It didn't work, but it worked anyway. So
that's right.
I could never play those games. They just went everywhere, and I could never pass. I never figured that out. It was just it was crazy.
But that's tremendous. So out of that experience, Dave, what caused you to start creating games? You did a cards and dice baseball game, if I remember correctly, right?
Right. During my college years, I did a a baseball game for a few years and a basketball game for 1 year. No, it's probably like everybody that's watching this, or you guys that grew up doing it. You play a game and you say, "Boy, I really love this, but if only this was different. If only that was different." And we get hundreds of emails a week from people that say, "Boy, Dave, I love this in the new basketball game, but now could you do this?" Or "I always wished a game had this strategy." So it's sort of like built on that. I mean, when I was a kid, I was always trying to come up with different ideas and things like that.
So what was your inspiration? What was it? Which game could you say, I think I can improve on X and try to do Y?
Well, in the 80s, my brother and I and probably 8 or 10 friends had a computer baseball game with one of the first computer baseball games that came out. It was pretty basic, but it was solid. And, when you want results, that's good. And I know it was in the fall of '89, my brother and I were driving back from some Packer geek trip, probably going to the Hall of Fame in Green Bay or something like that. And we were talking about how much fun the baseball league was. It was a draft league, and we knew everybody. We got together typically at one person's house on a Sunday night and played back-to-back, play a 3-game series, and the next guys would play, and the next guys would play. And he said, Dave, why don't you just make a football game? But he said it in a way as like, tomorrow when you get home, make a football game. But I had another business going on and a family and stuff. So it took a few years before I did it. But that was basically the start of it. And we had a league back in high school and college with APA football. Solid game, been around for a long time. But there are a lot of things that with a computer you can do a lot better. So that's basically where that started, the background there. And of course, you pick any game that you played as a kid and you can think of things that you would improve on it.
Oh, sure.
Doesn't mean they were bad. There's no more fun than what you had back then, especially, sometimes baseball stats now, some of the fun's lost.
Oh.
When there's more to it than what's on the back of the baseball card. I mean, it's fun for me to pick up a 1971 Tommy Harper card. He was my favorite player back then, and see his 30 home runs and 70 steals, his batting average, and not have to decide, okay, how good was he against lefties? Could he blister lefties or could he hit righties? Did he have power from either side? You didn't care. When you're a kid, it's the back of the baseball card and that's it. So a little bit of the simplicity or innocence is gone when you can break it down into everything. But
do you hear from teenagers who play the games? I mean, we've had so many guests on and said, yeah, and I've talked about this too. I saw this in the Sporting News. I saw this in Street and Smith. I saw this in this and that. And today although your prices are very reasonable and good for entry-level things, it is so not a teens game anymore. Do you hear from younger people playing, or are Dave and I on the younger end of your customer base?
Well, I think, Ron, you said you're 49, so you're probably
49, yeah.
Young to middle. When we do hear from like a teenager college, it's somebody who got hooked up playing with their dad, or I'm going away to college and can I play against my dad because my dad's got the game. And that's typically what it is. It's fathers introducing sons to the games. When you advertise things like this now, back in the 70s and 80s, Street and Smith's, Sporting News, those were the big things. That's where we advertised the first football game, was in Street and Smith's full page ad, because I knew at that era when I would get the new Street and Smith's baseball book, I was flipping through to see what new games were out. And for $20, yeah, I'll try anything, because it's fun to see everybody's theories on things. Now it's more word of mouth or Google ads or Facebook ads, which tend to be more geared towards your existing customer base. And as you get older, you prefer not to use your joysticks rather than using your head anyway. So
how some of us went from digital to dice.
That's kind of the premise of the whole show is digital to dice. Whereas I'm now 54, and it was probably 3 or 4 or 5 years ago that I couldn't play the Madden games anymore. I couldn't play the Xbox games or the NHL games. There were too many buttons, and I couldn't do it. In fact, I tell the story all the time on the show how in Madden and even 2K basketball, you have these tutorials to show you how to shoot and how to run in the end zone, and I fail the tutorials. and I think I'm hitting the button when I'm supposed to, and I think I'm doing this, and I'm not. And it's like, man, if I can't get through the tutorial, I don't know how the heck I'm going to play your game. So I had a lot of frustration. So I come over from the digital to the dice games, and I started rolling dice. And one of the first games I played was the Action PC Football, and it was actually Ron that showed me how to play it. Some of his videos on YouTube, and I remember getting the games like, this is great. I don't have to worry about my dexterity. I don't have to worry about being slow. I don't have to worry about playing a teenager that's got fast reflexes that's going to beat me to the punch here. I can just select my play and watch it play out. And it was a nice pace. There was some strategy to it. And it was at my age, that became enjoyable to me because I was not competing with my fingers. I was just clicking and watching things play out, and I could play some of my favorite teams and seasons, which I couldn't do that with modern games on the consoles, as you're locked into the current season. And so when I finally was able to play Steve Grogan as the New England Patriots and play Ken Stabler of the Oakland Raiders, that was a big deal for me as an adult. The first time I did that, it was pretty exciting, because that's something I had never been able to do until I started playing some of these games. So when you say that, people coming over from that, I'm one of the guys, and that's kind of how this whole show started, was me, because I did a video game podcast for 10 years, and then I come over to this, and now I'm doing this podcast here because this is what I'm playing now, and so it's just kind of a evolution of my gaming life as well.
Passion change. You tend to like in life what you're better at.
Right. And I'm the one that came over from I saw the ad in Street and Smith and got a hold of a copy of Micro League Baseball, and that was, that started to feed the beast 30, 40 years ago. So. Okay.
Yeah, a couple of our staff members that have been with us since the 90s, since their high school and college years, they played, I think back then, it was either Tony La Russa or Earl Weaver, one or the other.
Both. They were both out in the early 90s, yeah. I had the code wheel for Earl Weaver. And Earl Weaver was the one that you could actually construct your own stadiums. Okay. That was the first game, I think, Stadium Effects that were really there. So, yeah, we've been doing this a while.
Yeah.
So staff, how many people are on the staff? It's a lot of the people we talk to are just essentially pop operations, not even necessarily a mom. How big is the Dave Koch empire?
Well, we definitely qualify as a small shop, but there's half a dozen on staff, and one of the guys I mentioned, Brian, has not physically been in our office for 15 years. He's in Milwaukee. He's actually not been he's been with us for 25 years, but does mostly basketball. He's not been in the office I'm in right now in 12 years. Well, he's never been in this office. We moved in this office 12 years ago. So
oh, wow.
We were trailblazers in the remote work type thing. But John's been here for 25 years. Ryan, is my son, and he's been here forever. But it's sort of it's nice because it's all people that know the games and have been involved in the games. So if you call here or if you email for tech support, it's always going to be Ryan or John or myself or somebody that if they don't know the answer, they can at least steer you in the right direction. But yeah, being a small shop, we see every email. We never use an autoresponder, so somebody sees every email. So we get a good idea, or if there's a problem that comes up, it always either gets addressed or saved to be looked at. So there's some advantages that way.
Yeah, I've emailed a couple of times with the problem with the season, and I get a new file back pretty quickly, and I'm up and running again. So, and we hear a lot about that too, is that if there's something kind of quirky going on with the season, email you the season, you take a look at it, and send us back something that works pretty well. So
I had a response in 5 minutes for the last email I sent you, which is pretty impressive.
That's good.
Yeah, that was for when you redid the 68 season.
Okay, we had somebody ready to respond to those. That was one within the last week where we knew, I think within the first hour, I think 500 people requested it. So
wow,
we just made sure somebody was available. And a lot of the people we know by name, we know, when we started in 92, that was the first year for football. We had 300 or 400 people buy it, I think, which we thought was great. I mean, it wasn't, we had a different business that was just sort of a side hobby thing.
Were you? Did you do software? Is that where you came from, or was? So what did you? What
did I do software? No.
Oh, okay.
Let me just finish the thing about the 300 or 400 people.
Sure.
I would say at least half of those people I still see on orders when we send out an order in detail for the new football game. There'll be a lot of people that are originals that are ordering that first day, and I don't always look at the names on the orders, but those are the times a year I do because it's fun to see all these people that.
That's great.
The communication used to be all phone, so you know people by that, or you know people by sending letters, but yeah, it's fun. It's fun. We're aging with them, so. And I think a lot of people, a lot of their ideas got into the games through the years too, so they have sort of stock in the advancement of the games. My programming background, I had a little bit of programming in college, but in the 70s, I started a baseball card mail order business when I was in high school, and I did that, and then the board games in college, and then we had a retail store in the mall that was a fan shop, cards, jerseys, caps. So it morphed from one thing to the other, to where the game thing kind of took over, and we closed the store in 2001, and we've done just the game things ever since. So
how did the whole Action PC thing kind of start with you?
How did the game itself?
No, like the whole
Genesis.
And what was the first game that you did for Action PC?
The first game that I did?
Yeah, baseball, football.
Oh, it was football. Football in '92. Baseball and basketball didn't come until we were doing this full time in 2001. And football in '92 was DOS based. You had to choose. I think it was two 3.5s or 5 5.25s or something like that. And and then you had separate discs for the seasons. And our games aren't big memory hogs, but back then it was even less. So.
Yeah, I had some
Windows. We did in '98, I think, was the first year we did Windows, and that's when the internet had really taken off. So we built in the internet play at that time. So it was DOS based until I think '98.
Yeah, the disc. Funny you bring up the disc because I remember having some hockey games that I played disc, and I would have to uninstall everything off the computer to install the hockey game to play it. And if I wanted to play something else, I'd have to uninstall the hockey game because the computers, and that's another thing we can talk about too, is the difference with computer systems. Back then, like slow, no memory and the whole bit. Now you get computer systems that are fast with tons of storage and memory. And does that make making games easier for you now because computers are so much better?
Well, our games aren't memory hogs in the first place, but yeah, you don't really spend a lot of time worrying about memory when you're putting these together now. Even if you play a whole season and save all the box scores for baseball and you've got 2,000 games, that's just a little blip on your computer.
Right.
So you got the football game, and that's going, and then you bring in baseball and basketball. So what made you decide to go away from football and do other sports?
Sort of a passion for it. Same thing in every sport. There were things I wanted to see better, and I had guys with me that when we closed the store, I think everybody but one came along and did the software thing. So that was nice. That was a nice change at that time too, where we've got a group of guys that are all focused on we're going to make this, we're going to make it better every year. Basically, I mean, we still do that, but yeah, it was basically a passion for. I want to replay all these seasons. I want to do it the way I like it, and we still do that. We don't stray too far from what our passion is or what our specialty is, as much as we can.
You guys have a pretty busy development cycle. I mean, you guys are now producing 5 games a year with the Big Four and golf. Walk us through, if you would, the cycle of how a game gets developed over the course of a year. I'm sure you're already planning. You've released football was your last release. I'm sure you've started to work on the new version of football, even as training camps begin to open, right?
Yeah, we compile things throughout the year to have it ready so that we can put it together and get it to testers a month before we get it out. And basketball is going to testers tomorrow, so even though the season just finished 2 weeks ago. Did I mention the Bucks won, by the way?
No, but you can as many times as you'd like.
Okay. So yeah, we're constantly working on something. Golf is Ryan's. Golf and hockey are Ryan's main projects, but golf is his passion, and he developed that from scratch probably 7 or 8 years ago. So that's where the bulk of his programming time is spent. So I don't have to touch golf very much. But yeah, that's basically it. Always trying to work on something.
And football obviously is your baby?
Football, yep. Football's number one. But I spend a lot of time football, baseball, basketball. A lot of it tends to be in season. We're finishing off putting basketball together for next year during the playoffs, which is fun. We'll do the same thing for every sport. So it's nice when the Wisconsin team does well. There's a lot more passion for it right at that moment.
Yeah, I can imagine so. Yeah. What are some of your favorite things in your games, or some of the things that you're most proud of in your games?
Oh, it's the things you can't do with cards and dice, and I don't play cards and dice anymore. And I love the fact that you roll 2 6s an app on that. It sounds like the crack of a bat, and it's a home run. I love that. But there's so many things you can do in the computer aside from just the obvious stat keeping, which I actually didn't mind. I like doing the score sheets and things like that. But things like I'd say once a year we'll get a call or an email from somebody that'll say, "Hey, I'm playing the 70 Cowboys, and I went for it on 4th and 1 and threw an incomplete pass, and your game screwed up. It gave the team the ball on the 20-yard line." Well, that was the rule then. That was the rule. Incomplete pass in the end zone, you get the ball in the 20. So we try to build in all those things so it feels a little bit more like the era. But you can do things like baseball. We always ask people to send in rare plays, and we put in a lot of rare plays. You don't see them a lot because they're rare, but that's a pretty much a weekly type thing that you can build in. With the board game design, you knew when you were getting a rare play because there'd be something that would say rare play. With this, you don't know. Like you have Pedro Garcia on second base after a double, and the crowd's cheering, and then the next thing you see is Bobby Grich tagged him out, the old hidden ball trick, that type of thing. Because everything is an independent event, you can do all these really cool things. And so I guess that's it. It's being able to add all these little unique events that don't affect the stats. I mean, who cares if a guy gets tagged off a second base once every 30 years? It's not going to impact the stats.
I was playing a hockey game, and I was actually streaming it live on YouTube.
Coolest thing I've ever seen.
And I'm playing the game, and all of a sudden the screen went black, and I was like, oh, we got a crash. We got an error. Folks, hang on while I reboot the game. We got an error. And all of a sudden the black went away, and it down the bottom of the screen it said the lights went out in the arena. And then slowly it came back, and then the ice came back up on the screen, and it was the craziest thing I've ever seen. The lights went out at the hockey game.
You were on the phone to Dave Koch Sports right then. And
no, it was a Sunday afternoon, so no, we wouldn't do that. But
okay, well, I'll give you my cell phone next time.
I was just like, because I was like, okay, well, something's up here, but then it wasn't. It was still kind of playing in the back, and I was like, what's going on here? And it was the lights went out at the game, and then that got all the description in the play-by-play box about what happened, and I worked it into the broadcast. I worked it into as the home team shut out the lights to try to trigger the visitors and get them off their game, and it was like, wow. It's never happened since, but I had the lights go out, the screen went black, and I thought something was wrong, and nope, it was a rare play in the hockey game.
All the games have an assortment of odd things like that you're not going to see very often. I've never seen anybody post on a forum or social media anything about Jim Marshall or anybody else picking up a fumble and running the wrong way. But it's in the game. It's been in the game since the mid-'90s. But
so Easter eggs. I've had a walk-off safety.
The walk-off safety? Okay.
I've had a walk-off safety. I was playing my first year that I was doing this. Somehow the 78 Chiefs were really, really good. But when we looked, they were like a 4-12 team, but they lost a handful of games by less than 3 points. So they actually were a wild card team for me that year. So they're playing the Broncos in a late season game, and their quarterback was Mike Livingston. I mean, he couldn't throw. I mean, they were a wishbone team in the NFL. And so Gardner's already smiling over here. And so I've got 3 seconds to go. And I'm looking for a miracle because
was it a tie game? I think it was a tie game, right?
Yes, it was going to go to overtime. And I knew if it went to overtime, Kansas City wasn't going to score. And so I'm looking at my run options here for whoever my leading back was, and I had a 0.2% chance of a touchdown if I pitched out from my own 2-yard line. And so I ran the pitch out with my 6 or 7 people watching, and Tom Jackson tackled him in the end zone. The Broncos win 19-17 on a walk-off safety.
That's awesome.
And that's, one of the great things about your games is they feel like card and dice games. When I'm doing the basketball, when I'm playing the hockey, when you get the 1-star, 2-star, 3 stars, it feels like I'm flipping a fast action card. You're reading the result, and the background work is being done, and you're going from there, which I think is a tribute goes back to your card and dice background, that it doesn't lose that feel. As you said earlier, you could do so much more with a random number generator or 1,000 or whatever you guys do for that, but it doesn't lose that feel of playing, sitting down with your beverage of choice and playing a cards and dice game.
Well, it's it's nice to hear that. That's sort of the goal. I mean, we want it to feel like everything is an independent event. And it is. There's nothing that's preconceived. The play you described, you saw the chart of what could happen. What happened probably was a long shot, but it wasn't zero.
No. Nope.
And it's the same thing. Ron Theobald maybe hit 1 home run out of 500 at-bats in his career. If he hits one in this at-bat, that doesn't mean he's not going to hit one the next time. He's still got that 1 in 500 shot, all things being equal. So now enough people play the games, you're going to see that, and people are going to think on occasion, wow, he hit back-to-back home runs. He only hit 1 out of 500 that year. Could happen. Could have happened in real life, too.
Yeah, no, exactly. Exactly that. You got 5 sports.
It's more than one roll of the dice. Like for baseball, just as a real basic example, ground ball to the shortstop. There's no preset results. That's checked for an error. He fields it cleanly. His throw to first is checked for an error. It gets to the first baseman. That's checked for an error. So there's all these things that can happen. So that's why occasionally you'll see, like you do in real life, a little league play where there's 3 errors and the guys run around the field because you just ran into one of those things where the dice came up right or wrong, whichever way you want to put it.
Yeah, I just had a game last week. As I said to you, the Dodgers and the Cardinals are in the best of 3 playoff to decide who's going to win the National League. And the Cardinals spent that last weekend of the 49th season at Wrigley Field against the Cubs. And Stan Musial dropped a fly ball in right field, which eventually cost the Cardinals the game. I mean, it was like, yeah. And that's the type of no, that shouldn't happen. Well, it's 988 for a reason out there. And so,
right. Yeah, it's got to have everything we do that with football too. A classic example is, and this goes back to the board game design. If you had a pass receiver whose long was maybe 50 yards and that's all he could get on his card or the quarterback card, there was some situations you didn't have to play him deep, which in real football, that never happens. If there's any receiver in pro football can run 99 yards, catch and run. So it has to be a possibility. You can't just leave a guy uncovered or always cover him tight because he never went 50 yards. So the same thing on things like kick returns. We don't cap a real pro kick returner at 30 or 40 yards. There has to be that chance because he could have done it. It might not be a great chance. It has to be the chance he can run it back because he realistically could, because you don't want to end up at the end of the game when in a tight game the team scores and they kick deep because there's a 0% chance the guy's going to score. That would never happen.
We've had it. Ellis Hobbs. What was it? Okay. Was it the 99 Rams he beat or sent to overtime?
Yeah.
St. Louis. I did a Patriots challenge, so we took him against 8 other great teams of all time. And so I think it was St. Louis, the 99 Rams. And St. Louis scored with 4 or 5 seconds left to go ahead by 7. And the kickoff to Ellis Hobbs for the Patriots was returned for a game-tying touchdown. And we went into just one of those things. And just like the situation that you described. Because you just never know.
Right. It has to be able to happen, even if it didn't happen in real life. Statistically, it's not going to make a big difference in the stats, but strategically, it does, because no NFL team is going to decide, that guy, he's only gone 30 yards this year. We're just going to kick it deep and let him do whatever he wants. That just wouldn't happen. So there are a lot of things in all the sports that we try to make sure that we cover the details on that one.
Yeah, I like to see that myself when I'm playing, whether it's a baseball game or hockey, whatever I'm playing. Is that, I've had situations where a guy playing hockey got a couple of goals. He might have got 2 goals all year, but he got 2 in my game, and I like that factor. I got a guy that hits a home run that maybe even didn't hit a home run that season, but you got to have that small chance that anything can happen with any player. Now, again, you don't want the third line defenseman getting as many goals as Wayne Gretzky, and you don't want some scrub hitting 50 home runs a year. So I understand all that, but I always think it takes the fun out of a game when someone can't do something. Right. You got to give that little sliver of, like I say, a return for a touchdown or a fluke goal in hockey. Maybe he shoots it and hits the skate and goes in the net, or somebody just connects off a home run. The Denny Doyle getting his crazy home run for the Red Sox. So I always like that in a game when again anything can happen. And some people don't like that. Some people are like, nope, if he didn't hit a home run, he shouldn't hit a home run, and that's how they believe it should happen. But I think like Ron always says this, that once you start playing the game, reality's out the window. You're not playing reality anymore. You are playing a fictional game right now because everything's going to be different. Doesn't mean you can't have parameters and certain things should happen and certain things shouldn't happen. But, if you're expecting to get the exact results of a game, then it's not going to happen. You can be close, and that's what you like.
Pull up the encyclopedia and read the box score and call it.
Yeah,
good.
Exactly.
Sportsreference.com, you can read them all there.
Right. The home run example is a good example because I would say not everybody has a chance, but almost everybody has a chance. But all these random things aren't truly random. There's a percentage built in there. If a guy had a lot of doubles or something like that, or is a decent hitter, that increases the chance. You're not going to have somebody with no extra base hits and no sacrifice flies and is hitting in a big ballpark. It's without any wind, it's just not going to happen. So they're not truly random. Same thing with, say a guy putting anybody in to kick a field goal. You're just not going to put some Joe Nobody in there and have him hit a 50-yarder. That's too random. That's too random because there's got to be some skill level involved in that. You could put a punter in there, and he could potentially hit a 50-yarder. Not as good as your kicker could, but so we try to base that on realistic settings.
Do you happen to have drop kicks in your football game?
I don't remember if we do. I don't remember.
It's before my time. Yeah, before my time. But I remember as a kid having a football record book and flipping through. One of the records was the drop kick long record. I think it was 50 yards. Somebody hit a drop kick for 50 yards, and I don't know who it was or what year it was. And that just came to mind. It's like we talk about rare events. Just what if we played an older season, if you could, instead of field goal, if you could go drop kick.
Yeah, I will have to check. I know we have a lot of. Some of the older teams will quick kick on third down quite often and things like that.
There was a time, too, that in football, and this might be way back, is that if you threw too many incompletions, there was a penalty, I think it was.
Really?
Yeah. It's one of these, like you see on YouTube, the videos of like crazy football rules from the past. And one of them was if you I don't know if it was 2 in a row or 3 in a row or 10, how many incompletions? If you had incomplete forward passes, you were penalized somehow.
Changed during the war.
Maybe that's when it was.
Yeah, it changed during the war. It was one of those crazy. It was one of those SB Nation videos, and it was one of those. I saw it, and Dave must have saw it the same week, and we went, "What?" Because we'd never heard of that before.
Yeah, penalizing a forward pass if it was incomplete.
Then again, I didn't realize that 3-4 didn't exist last night until 1975.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, that's anything new in the pipeline, Dave? Are you going to expand to a 6th game or?
Nothing close right now. No,
nothing close. I know that you get asked that a lot, but
we get asked that about soccer, about boxing, about tennis, and those 3 examples. There isn't anybody on staff that's passionate enough to do it, and we try not to fake it. Try to make sure, like I said, that when somebody calls, there's somebody that knows. Okay, I can handle this because I know why this is in the game, and those would be tough. Those would be tough right now. But those are the ones, soccer especially. And I also don't want to do something halfway, and because like I said, we have so many customers that have been with us for so long. I know if we announce we're coming out with one of those games, there'll be a lot of people that will order it before they even look to see what's in it, and don't really want to take advantage of that. So, but otherwise, as far as new things, there's the new games all the time. There's new things in the basketball game coming out this month. There's always new collections. Brian put together for this fall basketball. I don't know if it's got a name yet. College basketball franchise all-stars, for lack of a better name, which is you pick the 35 top programs, pick 15 guys for each school based on their best season, and so that's a pretty cool set. Lots of great names in there, lots of great teams. So things like that. There's always fun specialty things we're working on, and a lot of the old baseball seasons are all those pre-1940 are getting updated with daily lineups and left-right splits. There's more data available all the time on that. They're not 100% complete, but
that must be one of the more amazing things for you as a designer and programmer is the availability of stats that when you came up with the football game in the early 90s just weren't available. I mean, I see you got Total Baseball behind you, and there just wasn't stuff available. Now you could launch angles and pitch counts and blah 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 blah.
Right. Pretty much for every sport, and from our suppliers too. There's amazing variety of stats that we would never use, but it's amazing what they track right now. Basketball, they track players' distance run on the court and things like that. I'm not sure what value that would have to us, but it's interesting.
Works with your fatigue, I think. Is there a moment that you've had playing your games that's even just kind of amazed you? Like a team that you didn't expect to win, or as Dave, the lights going out in the arena, or something that you just kind of sat back after a long day and went, "Oh wow, this is pretty cool."
Not specifically, but it'd more be like when I'm coaching a team I think should win and I lose. It's like I feel like, wait a minute, I know how this game works. It's not working for me.
You fire off an angry email to the owner.
Right, to myself.
The one
Send it to my wife. Send it to my wife. She's the corporate secretary. She can do something about it.
There you go. The one request that we get all the time when we do our streams, we talk about this with people is, they love the football, how you can replay the play in football, because that's a big deal, is watching replays in football, and even baseball, you can watch the replays. And so people are saying, boy, we really need this, especially in hockey, because I know golf has it too. Whereas the goal, when you score a goal, that is the biggest deal in hockey, and it would be really nice to just see that shot go in the net again, on a replay there.
Oh, okay, just a replay.
Just a replay of the shot going in the net, because you can replay the shots in golf, and I think you can replay. Ron, you can replay every play in football, right?
You can replay, in football and baseball you can.
In hockey, you cannot.
Yeah, so that's the one thing that we were talking about there, and a lot of people, because when we do our streams and we play the games or we watch other people, they're like, we really wish we could get a replay of just the goal, not everything else, just the goal in hockey. Those couple of seconds there, we can say, let's see that again, like we're doing a TV broadcast.
Was that an official enhancement request for 2021?
If it can get in there, but yes, that would be.
I just wrote it down, so there's a chance it can get in there.
Nice. But we get that all the time because we love it in the football, and I know the golf. You can replay a shot in golf and the whole bit, and obviously baseball. So but like basketball might be harder because there's a lot of things happen, a lot of different, like I say,
right.
Scoring in basketball. But with hockey,
you really want to replay every basketball play.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to do that. But in hockey, like I said, you get a late goal or something like that with 20 seconds left from Peter McNabb to put the Bruins into the finals or something like that. You'd like to see that again over and I know I played 100 times over myself. You know what I mean? But so that's something that people have talked about too, because the replays are so fun in the other games. They really are. I especially like the football because you kind of recap what you did. Okay, I did this and that against this defense. What happened? Maybe I can learn from my mistakes or learn from something I did there. Sure. So
it's always fun to show off a home run too.
Yeah.
So because I do that a lot. Who's your hockey guru?
Enhancement request. I'm sorry?
Who's your hockey guru?
Oh, that's actually Ryan that started the work on that. I do most of the programming now. Wisconsin, at least our area, I mean, it's a big hockey area, but it's mixed between basketball and hockey. So my kids grew up with basketball. Ryan went to college at St. Cloud State.
Okay.
D1 hockey, and instantly he flipped to hockey. And they had a lot of, where in our area we have a lot of playground basketball. There, he said, at the university, it's like every park corner, kids are out playing hockey. He ended up playing intramural hockey, so I got to play on the D1 ice at 1 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, nice.
So that was sort of the passion for that. Ryan kind of kickstarted that project.
On the ticker, you have the ticker in some of the games, which are really fun. Is there a way that when the game ends on the ticker, it could still stay there? Because sometimes we'll be following the ticker and we'll be playing our game. Like, oh, hey, look, Los Angeles and whoever are playing, and they're neck and neck down the stretch, and then that game ends and it comes off the ticker, and we're like, what happened? So we have to.
You're on to the next game. Yeah, possible.
Yeah, we have to end our game. When our game ends, we can see what happened. But sometimes you're keeping an eye on that, whether it's a playoff race or just, you know that you got a couple of teams that are playing, favorite teams are playing in a game that you're not playing, and you're keeping an eye on that ticker, and it's 2-1 in the third period, or whatever the score is in the other games, and then all of a sudden when the game ends, you don't get the final score.
You're on to the next game.
Yeah, and so the ticker kind of moves on to something else. And it'd be great if that ticker would be like final. Like the final from Montreal is Boston 19 and Montreal nothing.
Stop.
I'm kidding, Ron, of course. But yeah,
I need a new co-host after this.
But yeah, because it's like we follow that. I like to follow the ticker too. I think that's one of the most fun things about the game is you're playing your game, but there's all these other games happening at the same time. And
so immersive, I think.
It's very immersive. Yeah, it feels like I say, you're watching TV and you get the little thing in the corner showing the other out-of-town scores. And that was always a big deal as a kid because, growing up, we didn't always have that. Now you get all this information 24 hours a day on the screen. But growing up as a kid, when they flashed the out-of-town scores, that was a big deal.
It's so different now. You're watching a game on TV, the score is scrolling across the bottom. Your cell phone's telling you the score of the game.
Right.
Yeah, you can't miss it.
You know how your fantasy team did before the game kicked off,
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But it is fun. The ticker is one of my favorite features when I'm playing a season replay. I love looking at the ticker there myself. And so, so yeah. Right, so you got the 5 games. So you got the football you started first, and then basketball and baseball, and then which came first, hockey or golf?
Hockey.
Hockey came first, and then the golf.
Even golf. Golf's only
golf is your most recent.
Its 6th or 7th year right now.
Okay.
And we're up to, between the user-created courses, I think there's 200 or 300 courses.
Oh, yeah.
Right now.
Yeah, it's amazing. Absolutely amazing the amount of courses that are available for that. And this in the seasons and all the sports and the different compilations that you have and the Negro Leagues for baseball, and how it all kind of fits in together.
Right. Yeah, it's fun. I appreciate that, guys.
So,
well, all righty. Hey, well, thank you so much for joining us here, and we learned a little bit about DK Sports and a little bit about you and how things kind of tick over there and the whole bit. And so right now, instead, if you had to pick one sport you would add to the 5 for another game, something completely off the wall. That might never happen. But if
you want me to say distance running, right? Is that what?
Yes, exactly.
Well, if you guys think it would sell, I think I can do the left foot, right foot, the foot. Change the pace. That maybe could be our first video game, hand-controlled game.
But click the mouse, left, right on the mouse. Get that instant carpal tunnel going.
That's right.
Action PC bass fishing.
Oh boy.
So is there one game that you particularly play more than the others, or is it just because it's work? I'm done with this at the end of the day.
No, the answer to that, Ron, is the same answer as when you're a 10-year-old and somebody says, "What's your favorite sport?" Okay, in the fall it's football, and it's whatever the season is. That's what you're into.
Okay.
So, although some years it extends, like this year, basketball extended into the summer because of the Bucks. But yeah. It's whatever's going on at the time.
Okay.
That's where the passion goes. And I can't help go to a Brewer game and you see something happen and making a mental note, okay, I got to make sure I do that for next year. That happens all the time.
You sit there and watch a baseball game and watch the shortstop bungle a play, and he's going to go, oh, he's a 4. We see that with Strat, Keith Hernandez. Oh, he's going to be a 1 in left field. He made that great catch. And like one of your guys, like, oh, he went from a 6 to a 4. Oh.
Try to get, something like that.
With a few other choice words thrown into that, depending on what the Brewers are doing.
Right.
Well, on behalf of someone who has a community who is growing all the time, and the hours of entertainment that you provided me over the years, well before I started streaming, and the fact that your products seem to be what I stream an awful lot of. Thank you so much for what you do. It really is wonderful. Your products are very
Me too.
good.
This was one of the first sports sim games I played on the PC, and this is what kind of sparked Digital to Dice. And I know that this is not a dice game per se, but it's a sports sim, which is much different than the console games that I was playing, and they're very, very enjoyable games. Very, I hate to say relaxing, because sometimes they do get intense, but again, it's something you can put your feet up and play at your pace, and there's no hurry to play these games, and they're quite enjoyable.
Get your blood pressure worked up, get your heart rate worked up without
done that a few times.
Without it being very serious or important. So well, that's good. I appreciate that, guys, and you guys keep up the good work. Thanks again for having me.
All right, we shall. Hang on one sec. Don't go away, Dave. We're just going to sign off here, but we got some parting gifts for you. No, we don't. We always say that,
thanks,
though. But,
a year's supply of Creebits.
So, Dave Koch from Action PC Games, thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, by the numbers, episode 100 of the Digital to Dice podcast. Special thanks to Dave Koch. Action PC Sports coming on here on episode 100. And we told you we had a terrific guest lined up for show 100.
He certainly was. Great to, it's always amazing. We've had a number of these guests on who have either created games, and they got their inspiration as kids looking in the back of the Street and Smith catalog.
Yeah, that was interesting. How we, started with games and the whole bit. So.
Yeah.
But anyway, hey, our ways to get a hold of us here as we fade out here. Again, digitaltodice.com is the website where we park all the shows over on Spreaker. 978-751-DICE is the Dice line. digitaltodice@yahoo.com is our email. And over on Facebook, facebook.com/groups/digitaltodice. And Ron, 100 episodes in the bank.
Wow. Doesn't seem possible, does it?
And we kick off next week with episode 101, and we might have another terrific guest for episode 101 if all goes well, and we hope it does. If not, then on 102. But so we kick off the second 100 shows with another home run, I hope.
I hope so too.
All right, we'll talk to everybody later.
Bye-bye.